Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Clucci, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back. We are back today. Oh my God, on literally probably the coldest fucking day of the year. I am joined today all the way from Winnipeg by Jody Rogers. Jody and I know each other. She is my, what would I say, like cousin-in-law, maybe, I guess. She is the cousin to my sister's husband. Jody and I met through family and absolutely love this human. Same badass attitude, same firecracker spirit. She's my fucking sister from another mister, I guess. Yeah. Jody is currently working as a detective sergeant in the major crimes unit with the Winnipeg Police Service, but she actually started her career all the way back here in 2003 with the Edmonton Police Service. Jody's been a police officer for 22 years. She did 8 years with EPS and then moved to Winnipeg and joined the Winnipeg Police Service as a constable. She did some time in child abuse and then got that promotion in 2024. So congrats on that and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is interesting and exciting. I'm not sure what to expect, but we'll see.
It's gonna be fine. It's just basically us chatting, having a little catch up because we haven't seen each other in 13 years, which is freaking insane. It's so crazy. Time, it's just, the older I get, the faster time goes. And I remember people telling me that when I was 20 and I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And now here I am at 40 and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be 60 and real quick. No,
I know. We were talking about someone was turning 50 for their 50th birthday. And I was like, oh, that's so far away. And it's not that far away. And it's, and I still sometimes think that I'm really, really young still on this job. I still feel like I'm new and I'm still learning. But then I look at some of the new recruits and the new people coming through and I was like, I am the old person that when I first started would be like, wow, that guy's that's the old school way of doing things. That's me now. That is 100% me.
Well, it's totally true. And it's funny you say that because I remember starting, same thing. We were probably about the same age. I was 22 when I started. I started in corrections in 2002. And I remember starting and my sergeant, we called them the CO3, the supervisor at the time, was my age. His kids were 4, 6 and 8. And I remember looking at him and being like, oh my God, he's so old. And not in a bad way because I loved him. Ken, if you're listening, I love you. I still love you. But I do just remember thinking he's in a totally different era of life than I am. And that's so far away. And then I literally was talking to somebody that's trying to get into, a first responder career. She's 22 and she's like, yeah, and I just feel you know so much. And you're already married and you have, kids and you've got this all figured out and, you just have so much experience. And I just remember thinking exactly the same thing. Oh my God, I am that person. Oh my God. When the fuck did that happen? Yeah. Because in my head, I'm still 22. I'm still la 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 la.
I can still do all the things I could do when I was 22 when I started. I feel like it, but the reality is it's not the same. Yeah.
No. My body reminds me of that every morning when I wake up.
Morning.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's great. I'm so I'm so excited that you were able to find the time to sit down with me, take this opportunity because I've always wanted to know, and we've never really had the chance. You've been back and we've missed each other, and we never really had the chance to sit down and talk about the move, the transition, what that was like for you, this totally new province, new police service, everything like that. But I want you to take me way back to the beginning. May of 2003, you get hired on as that pre-recruit class with EPS. What drew you into this career? What led you to law enforcement? What was that journey like for you?
Well, I think it started way back when I was in high school, and I remember having some school resource officers in and around the school. And I think that kind of drew me to that career. I thought it looked pretty neat. It's always respectable in the community. And I thought, like, I can give back to my community and help people out. So in high school, I did my I don't know what it's called, like a workplace, I don't know, 2 weeks kind of practical with the Brandon Police Service, because I grew up in Brandon, Manitoba. And I did my practicum there. And it just that was kind of the push forward to go and move forward. So from there, I went to school in Lethbridge. I went and took 2 years of criminal justice in Lethbridge, and I played volleyball out there. And then came back to Brandon, where I worked for the Brandon Police Service as a civilian and started going to university back in Brandon. But that's when I was applying for all these agencies to kind of get hired in. So I applied for the Mounties and Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Brandon. I got deferred from the Mounties, a 2-year deferral, which I think is very common. But at the time, it was like the most devastating thing that I had ever gone through. At the time, I'm sure, like, hindsight 2020, it was probably the best thing that could have happened for me, but it was devastating at the time. And then Edmonton hired me, and their process was so quick compared to everybody else's. And I worked for Brandon Police Service as a civilian. So for them, even working for them, their process is quite a bit slower than EPS. So when Edmonton hired me, I was like, yeah, like, I'm not turning that down for an opportunity that I might stay in Manitoba. So yeah, then I was out the door, and within a couple weeks, I was a pre-hire with EPS. They put me in the Zebra Center, which was the child abuse unit there, which is really what got me motivated to eventually work my way up into our child abuse unit with Winnipeg Police. So people treated me really, really well. I learned kind of the intricacies of how the service worked, and like the ranking system and what's the expectation of recruits. And then by September of 2003, I was in recruit class. So yeah, that's how it kind of all started.
That's amazing. That's like, and it's funny that you say that too, because they're like about the recruiting process and, the differences and the speed and things like that, because that really is like a deciding factor. So like, hey, agencies, if you're listening, make it less of a pain in the ass, right? Because it is true. It's like, if it's taking a year, people, like, other agencies are going to snap people up. Like, it is what it is. Like, I know having people come and run their fitness tests with us all over the place. Everyone's got multiple applications in. Nobody's putting, like, although there might be one dream agency that you're like, oh, I really want to go work for them. But like, you're not hedging all your bets on that one. You're right. People are applying everywhere. And so, yeah, to hear that. And I was with you, same thing. I got deferred from the RCMP. I got deferred for a year. And devastating. I found out at work at the jail. I burst into tears. I like ran out of the admissions and discharge area. And like, I don't know why at the time I took that fucking call at work. Like, but it was like, when the RCMP calls, you're like, I'm fucking answering this phone call. And so I like answered the phone call, and then was like, and they're like, yeah. And like, they're just so nonchalant. But like, yeah, you deferred for a year. So like, if you're ready, apply back in a year. Like, they've just landed like the death toll on your life. Your entire fucking world is shattered, and they're just so like nonchalant about it. You're like, so I totally remember. And I had made it all the way like to the very last part. Like, at the time, my boyfriend, who's now my husband, we were already talking about, okay, if I go to depot, like, what are you going to do? Are we going to sell our house? Like, so I 100% get that devastation. Yeah. But I also love that didn't defer you from being like, okay, that's not my journey. I'm fucking going this way, right? Like, I'm gonna keep applying. And awesome that Edmonton stole you. I love that. When you moved here, you knew, obviously, because like my sister and her husband's family and stuff are out here, but like, did you know anybody else, or was that just like you're up and coming and you're like, we're gonna figure it out when I get there?
We're gonna do all this on our own. Well, because I went to school in Lethbridge, there was lots of people that were from Alberta that went there. And so a lot of them either went to Calgary or Edmonton or Lethbridge as a police agency. So I did know a few people. Some of them were in my recruit class, which was awesome. Some of them I'm still friends with from school that I see every once in a while, because they've kind of moved around and they've been to other agencies. So, when there's conferences or, for unfortunately, funerals, we tend to see each other then. So yeah, I did know some, but I was very grateful to having family there, because I did move in with some family when I first moved, because I didn't even know which way was north when I moved there. Like, I had no idea. I'd been there for visits, but never to live. So yeah, it was a game changer for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then when you went into recruit training, like what was that like for you? Because you would have been what, 22, 23?
Yeah, I was 22. I turned 23 in recruit training class. Well, it was a shocker, first of all, because I had never been in any type of military type of setting. And it was paramilitary. So it was very structured. It was very strict. It absolutely built who I am today. And I still carry a lot of those traits and things that I've learned along the way. I still use them today, and people think I'm old school and crazy, but it's like you could not walk down the hall without acknowledging someone in the hallway, right? Like you needed to, sir, ma'am, staff, whatever. And that was to teach us to keep our heads up when we were out in the real world, is to acknowledge who's around you and be aware of your surroundings. It wasn't to put us in our place, although that did help, but it was really to teach us what it's like when you're out on the street. You need to keep your heads up. You need to know your surroundings, and you need to know who's around you, right? And acknowledge who they are, whether there be the cleaning company or the janitor or the deputy chief of the service. Like, you need to know who's who and be aware of that. So I found it to be super duper strict. I actually had to get my hair cut really, really short because it was mid-length and it would touch my collar, and that was against policy. So I had to do that. I remember like studying like degree, staying up late, study groups. I was grateful for having gone to school and taking some of that in schooling, because I knew what the criminal code was. I knew how to find things. I knew how to do that stuff. But it was different. Like fitness was also, although I was an athlete my whole life, I was always a bigger, stronger person, but endurance was never my thing. So running was not for me.
Yeah.
And we ran the Hotel Max stairs. I don't even know how many times till we puked at the top. Like it was intense. So like, I remember one guy yawned in class, and we all got in shit for that because he yawned. And so like we had 3 minutes to get into our gym clothes, and we were running the stairs. Like we had to run from HQ all the way to the stairs, and we did that for like 2 hours, and it was awful.
Yeah.
But, so I would say like it really taught me how to be regimental and strict, and like put my thoughts to the side, because this is a way you need to learn how to be healthy, strong, and how to survive in this world, right? Like it's a challenge. People sometimes don't understand that, but you needed to learn how to survive. So it was very strict. When I moved to recruit class in Winnipeg, it was very different. I was shocked because although I was experienced there, I think I was naive that every agency is the same. And that is absolutely not the case. I found it to be quite different, and I was a lateral. So they took me in as an experienced officer. So it was definitely more forgiving for me. And there was one other lateral that I was in there with. It was very more forgiving. But even I was doing my lateral program at the same time our recruit class was, and it was very relaxed, like girls with their hair down their back. And I remember in the change room saying like, oh, I have extra hair nets if anybody wants one to keep their hair off there. And they were like, yeah, no, we don't need those. Like, we don't do that here. I was like, okay. It was very different, right?
Yeah.
Like in Edmonton, we would be running stairs for that. Here, it didn't even get looked at. So it was very different. But yeah.
I love that you say that it has molded who you are as a person, because I absolutely believe that as well. I think what you learn in those, and it's funny that we say like formative years, because now it's not like I'm fucking 90, but like it's true, because there is things that stick with me from, again, like, 22, 23, 24, my early years in corrections, that like they are ingrained. Like I will never do it differently, because that was like, okay, you will do it this way because of that. You said a couple of things in here. So the acknowledgement of those people that are around you, I love that you described it that way, because there is that at the training academy, I didn't have to do that. That wasn't a thing when I went to training. It's a huge thing now. And so I remember going back as like a deputy director, right? I had the leaves on my shoulders, very, very much. Again, people could tell as I was walking down the hallway, like, oh, that's a big boss. Like, ma'am. And I used to get so mad about it. I'm like, fuck off. Don't call me ma'am. Like, oh my God, I feel like I'm 90 years old. Yeah. But there is a reason behind it. It's not necessarily to belittle you or to make the fucking biggers feel good because they're ma'am, sir, yes, sir. Like as they go down the hall, it's because we want you fucking aware. We want you exactly noticing what's going on around you, noticing little details, taking in like that situational awareness that is so key to our job. To this day, there's still things. And again, I've been out for 5 years. There's still things that like I pick up instantly. And my friends and my kids are like, Mom, what are you looking at? And I'm like, are you not fucking seeing that? Like, who is that? How are you not fucking seeing what is happening right now? And they're like, what? And they like look around and you're like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So I love that like, again, in a simple skill like that, that's what they're training you. It is that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Blue Line Fitness Testing is a premier law enforcement fitness testing and training center based in Edmonton. Specializing in helping individuals prepare for the physical demands of a career in law enforcement, we offer comprehensive fitness evaluations, specialized training programs, and classes tailored to meet the unique needs of our clients. Our facility hosts a range of classes and are committed to fostering a supportive and empowering environment where clients can achieve their fitness goals. Our team includes experienced trainers who bring specialized expertise in law enforcement, self-defense, personal training, and rehabilitation. We engage through our community through challenges, events, and our podcast, and we are dedicated to helping individuals succeed in their fitness journeys and career aspirations in law enforcement. Are you looking to get started with your career? Come see Blue Line Fitness Testing, and we'll get you there.
And then I still get in shit for saying ma'am and sir down the hallway, even though I'm saying sir to someone that's could be junior to me, but is more senior in rank, but also like we're friends. And I say, sir, and they're just like, shut up. Like, but it's just drilled in me. We do that. Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah. Well, and even like, again, you were saying too, like the ability to remain mentally and physically strong when you're exhausted, when your brain is overloaded with information, when you've been so crammed full of information and you're trying to fucking process it, but still needing to be able to react and be on your game.
Yeah.
I went out to run with the recruiters here in Edmonton. I was just talking about, we have an event actually tonight with Edmonton Police about recruiting and the APREP and things like that. And so I was just kind of talking to it was a women's only event. And I was kind of talking to them, and some of the, girls started asking questions like, oh, what about this? And what about this? And I was like, well, like we train you this hard because there is no, oh, you know what? I'm not really feeling like 100% today, so I'm just going to dip out. Like, no, that is not an option. When you are in the field and you get hurt in a fight, there's no option to stop fucking fighting. Oh, you got cross-contaminated with spray. There's no option to be like, I'm so sorry, my eyes are burning, I need out. Like, that's not a fucking option. So you had better figure out how the fuck to fight through all of that shit when you are exhausted, when you feel like you're going to fucking die, when your eyes are burning, when your body is physically fucking injured and you still have to push through. Like that is actual mental toughness. That is resiliency. That is, being committed to your job. And yes, we want to drill that into you in training. And it starts even before that. It starts with that dedication to getting up early and going to the gym every fucking day, even though you're tired, even though you're working a 12-hour shift, even though you've got kids at home or you've got this or you're taking care of your elderly parents. Like, you need to dig in now, because if you do it now and you create those habits now, when you go through training, it'll be a fuck of a lot easier. When you get on the job, it'll be a fuck of a lot easier. So like, I just love that you, same thing, kind of, like reiterated that. So you finished recruit training. You were with what I always call them detachments, but they're not that. What are they? Division? I think they're division. Divisions in Edmonton. So where did they put you? And then how did that kind of play out for the next 8 years?
They put me in downtown division in a unit. Yes, I was very lucky. And I was like, oh man, like, do they put the shitty recruits there? Do they put the strong recruits? I don't know. It's kind of a toss up. I wasn't sure, but I loved it. I loved every second. And it truly opened my eyes. I was and I can say this now, a very naive 23-year-old white female from a prairie town in Manitoba that, although I had seen some things, I hadn't ever really experienced. And I remember going to my first, so I was downtown. Yes, I was put downtown. There was another girl from my class also in my unit, on my division, on my squad. And we were the first girls that they'd had in a very long time, because it just wasn't a thing. They didn't have as many as they do now, right?
Yeah.
anyways, I remember going with my field trainer to my very first call for service, and it was a domestic with 2 gay partners, 2 gay men partners. And my mind was blown because I was like, do I even know anybody that's gay? I don't know. Right. But I'm sure I did at the time, but it never really occurred to me. And so I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I remember being like, what am I fucking doing? I don't deserve to be here. Like, I am so naive at how the world works. And I was just like, is this the right calling for me? I remember questioning that because I felt like I wasn't prepared. I was very naive to where I was coming from, to where I was. It absolutely didn't take me long to figure all that out. Because you have to. You have to adapt. You have to figure it out. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me was working downtown. I had some great partners. My sergeant was I still talk to him. He's one of my favorite people. He had been on longer than I was alive. So when we talk about being that junior person, that was who he was. Yeah, it was. So yeah, I was in downtown. I had a baby when I was there. So after I was working for 4 or 5 years, I was on light duties, just being pregnant. They put me in recruit training units. That was kind of where I wanted to go as a goal. And so when I became pregnant, they put me in there as light duties. So I helped train recruits just with some basic classes. Like I think I taught notebook and report writing and some basic stuff. And then I helped out with their fitness stuff and their training days. And then from there, I went to West District, where EPS had a really great part-time program that I took part in for about 6 months while I was returning back to work from mat leave. And I think my experience working in downtown really set me up for success in West District and had some great people. Actually, my first, my female boss was there. And I remember working for her. And although we didn't get along for the first little while, she is someone that I will never forget because she is a very strong, dominant female. A lot of people, she put me in my place. Like she knocked the chips off my shoulders. And I will never forget her for that because she is the only person to this day that has really put me in my place when I needed it.
Yeah.
She was amazing. But yeah, so I went from downtown, loved it, had some great partners who I'm still very, very good friends with today and see them whenever I go back to Alberta. I see them all the time and kind of check in with them. But yeah, it was awesome to go from downtown to West District. And then when my family decided, my husband at the time, and we had a baby, we decided we need to move back to Manitoba to be closer to family. Yeah, his family was here. My family was here. So that's when we decided to up and leave. But it wasn't a choice that I made easily. And I still, to this day, wonder what it would be like if I had stayed, for sure.
I remember you guys, because I'm pretty sure it was at Jace's first birthday, like my nephew's first birthday. And we were talking. And I think you guys had either made the decision or you were like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going back. Like we want to go, And I remember you being like, but I don't not that you didn't want to go, but you were just so torn about leaving and what that meant. And I mean, for anybody, that's that restart again. Oh God, back to recruit training, back to being kind of the rookie, even though I'm experienced. And I think it's almost worse, to go as an experienced officer because there's a double expectation on you then, right? It's you better know your shit. You've been a police officer for 8 years, or you've been a CO, or you've been a whatever for, this amount of time. You better know your fucking shit. But also here's an entirely new city, an entirely new department, divisions, the way we do things, fucking chain of command. So you better also know all that. And you better know it instantly as you roll through the door, be on your A game. And it's I'm also a recruit, guys. I'm also learning all this shit at the same time. So
yeah. And for me, when I moved over to Winnipeg in recruit training as a lateral, I actually tore my ACL in use of force training.
No.
It was actually the day that me and the other lateral were supposed to get our badges. The chief was late because he had another event that he was at earlier in the day. And so they're like, oh, the chief's not going to be here till 2. So why don't we do some basic use of force stuff. We'll do some baton striking drills and things like that. And I was like, oh God, I don't want to keep doing this. I just want to get on with this, right?
Yeah.
So we did. And I tore my ACL in that 2 hours before I got my badge to be, so then I was light duties right out of recruit class. So it sucked. So they kept me at the academy, which was great. And I did a lot of courses and training. So like it was the best of all worlds, but yeah, it really delayed me getting out into the onto the street as a constable, because I had another 8 months before I was able to go back on the road before I had surgery. And then my surgery didn't go well, so I had to have another one. And like it really put it back quite a bit. But
that is so challenging, because again, they're expecting you've built up this expectation in your mind, like tomorrow I'm going to be at this division on this shift. And then it's like your whole world just switches instantly.
Yeah. And I remember talking to the sergeant who I was scheduled to go to her shift. And she said to me, when she found out that I was injured, I saw her like weeks later. She's like, we were so excited to have a lateral come to our shift because we needed some experience and some seniority, and it would have been really great. And we were really disappointed to hear, maybe not that I maybe would have done well, but I mean, the reality is like they were expecting someone that actually knew what they were doing and didn't really need to be trained anymore. So
yeah. And that changes the dynamic on a shift 100%. If you get somebody in that you're like, okay, they already know what they're doing. We're good. We can, So what was the training like? Like you kind of touched on it a little bit, a lot more relaxed apparently. But like, was it still like, did you have to do, because like is Winnipeg's, like if you're a new recruit, is it the same thing, like almost 6 months and you're doing this? Or was like lateral, like here's a condensed version, get it all done, know the city, know our kind of policies and things like that, and then go?
Yeah. So there was only me and one other lateral, and we kind of were running parallel to an actual real recruit class. So the real recruit class would have been 6 months, but we didn't have to do that. We did, I think it was 6 weeks. So they put us through like the Traffic Safety Act and HTA, like the Highway Traffic Act and the Traffic Safety Act are different between provinces. Some similarities, but we learned like the differences. And then we had to do use of force training, and because we have to be up to speed, we did driving training and firearms training. So for me, firearms, we used the same firearm, but a different holster. So for me, that was different, where the guy that I lateraled in with used a different firearm, but the same holster. So we had two different kind of issues. Our firearms training was only about a week. I love firearm training. I could train that every day. It's one of my favorite things we do on this job, but so it wasn't difficult, that part, because it was the same weapon. It just needed a different holster. So the draw was a little bit different, but other than that. And then, we did some scenario-based stuff, and that was it. Like it really was. And we were very lax because they knew that we were laterals, and both of us were 8-9-year experienced members wherever we came from. So it wasn't like we needed to be from the ground up kind of thing. So yeah. I think it was quite relaxed. Yeah.
That is a nice way to, like, when we talk about like the difficulties coming in as an experienced officer, but I don't need you to tell me about dress and deportment. I don't need you to tell me about fucking standing at attention. Yes, ma'am. Like we got it. I'm good. Yeah. Maybe a quick little refresher on the old drill, on the old marching, because that drops out real quick.
Yes.
Right. But like the rest of it is, Did you find, like, going kind of into the use of force, did you find a lot of differences in like kind of not the policy, but like, if this happens, we're going to do this with EPS, but if this happens, we're going to do this with Winnipeg? Was it different, or was it very similar use of force? Like, we have an active resistor, we have a passive resistor, we've got an assaultive, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And was it very similar, or was there kind of some differences in that?
No, I thought it was very similar because they used the same use of force continuum for both agencies. So that wasn't really an option, or the difference. I guess there really wasn't. But I would say, though, things like EPS at the time, I don't know if this is the same, is we had issued tasers. Like I didn't share my taser with anybody else. WPS, they never issued tasers. You got assigned a taser every day. Someone else used it the day before. Like it was that. So that was kind of different, that, if there wasn't enough tasers, you might not carry one. There was one that was damaged or, needing to be fixed or downloaded, then you didn't have an extra one on the street. And we only carried one set of handcuffs, which made me crazy. Like I was actually asked if I could get a second pair, and they said no. So I went out and bought my own second pair of handcuffs, because I was used to, with EPS, having 2 sets of handcuffs. Yes. And with WPS, they only issued you one.
Yeah. And that does make a difference in the middle of shit to have one or two. It 100% makes a difference.
Well, and I was used to that. Like they sat on either side of my back. I knew like it would just balance out my belts. Like I was used to it. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fair too. You do, and like you do get into your, I'm comfortable with this. I know exactly where this is. When I'm in the middle of the shit, I've reached to my right. I know I've got this. I reach to my left. I know I've got this. I've got this in my cargo pocket. I've got this in my chest pocket. Like this is in my vest. I know. Yeah. So yeah, that would be that muscle memory to retrain. That would be real hard.
Yeah, real hard. It is real hard. And like with EPS too, is we never wore exterior carriers at the time for our vest. I think that's changed over the years, but at the time we never even were issued an external carrier. We had internal. So it never occurred to me to ever wear an external carrier until I came here. And now it's part of policy. You can carry an exterior carrier if you so choose and you're issued one. But at the time I was like, that's ludicrous to me because that's such a use of force issue and an officer safety problem.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 what we were trained at the time. But, things have changed over the years and policies changed. But yeah, so now I do actually, and when I'm in plain clothes, I absolutely use an exterior carrier. But yeah, because I'm not often, unless I'm on the road, I don't wear my vest in the office. So
yeah. So when you finished training and then finished all your rehab from ACL surgery, which is brutal, you started as a patrol constable again in Winnipeg and like we're kind of on the streets with one of the, do they call it divisions there as well?
Yeah. So I was in the North Division, or North End. So I was in District 3, we called it. So it was the North End. I was assigned to the old District 6, which is kind of West District, just for a couple of weeks of recruit training, like field training. And it's a huge division but I mean, nothing really happened there. So then I moved to North End, which was more my style and more what I was used to training or used to working at when I worked in Edmonton. So I liked the North End quite a bit. We had good bosses and a good shift. My field trainers were awesome. They absolutely recognized that I had some experience, which was kind of nice. At the same time, I also needed to know my place because what we used to do or what I used to do was not necessarily the same here. And I needed to remember that. So I never wanted to be that person. Well, we used to do it like this. And this is how, like, I did not want to be that person because it wasn't necessarily the right way how I was doing it. So I needed to be open-minded about new techniques, new training, that kind of stuff. So for Winnipeg, we have a mandatory policy that you always have 2-man cars on the street. It's mandatory. It's in our collective bargaining agreement. EPS didn't have that. We have a minimum amount of cars on the street at a time. So if you could fill those cars with 2-man people, great. If you couldn't, then it would switch to 1-man. So you couldn't, in Winnipeg, you can't be on the street after 9 p.m. as a 1-man general patrol unit. So during the day, if there was an odd man out, then you could be the 1-man. But for the most part, you were always 2-men. You always had a partner. So that was different than what I was used to in EPS. So that was kind of like a game changer for me. So you always know you had a partner. People were there to help you, back you up when you needed it. I mean, EPS, they backed you up. Absolutely. You would never be dispatched to a call for service as a 1-man car unless it was like an old 3-day break and enter kind of thing. But here we have a mandatory 2-man car, which is kind of one of the major differences I found between agencies. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, that is a game changer, knowing that there's always somebody right there, not on a radio call away, not on a car away, right there with you. Yeah. And so did you find, because like Winnipeg, like people compare it all the time, like, oh, Winnipeg and Edmonton, very similar downtown, like looks the same. Like, did you find it was a lot of similarities in, the calls, not necessarily the layout, because obviously it's different geographically, but like that kind of similarities was it kind of like that as well?
Without a doubt, it was just Winnipeg is just a smaller Edmonton, the way I found it from a policing perspective. We have a high crime rate. We have lots of gangs. We had lots of drugs, and like that was without a doubt a lot of violence in our city. And I found Edmonton to be very, very similar. So oftentimes our city is overloaded when there's evacuees from northern communities, just like Edmonton, right? Winnipeg is the biggest city with most appropriate hospitals for people that are being evacuated from up north, whether it be from fires or whatever issues they have. They would come and be stationed in Winnipeg. I found that to be similar with Edmonton. Edmonton's the biggest city. It has some of the better hospitals. And so northern communities would come and be stationed in Winnipeg or in Edmonton for those types of events. So, or types of things that would happen. So I found like our cities were very similar when it came to that kind of stuff. Policing is no different. Like, right? Like it really comes down to how you treat people too. So that doesn't change. If you can talk to one person, you can talk to lots of people. So that didn't change. But yes, I would say, I mean, I remember people that I would first start, well, this is Winnipeg, like we're the homicide capital of the country and we have most violence and there's shootings all the time. And I was never like, yeah, I get it, but I do get it because 100% I work downtown Edmonton. That is exactly what it was every day, all the time. Like I can't even count how many shootings and stabbings and sudden deaths and whatever. Like we did it. It was the same. But you know, when you haven't experienced other things, people think this is just what we have. But no, it is. I would say they were very, very similar in many ways.
And I think that like you said too, it's so funny that we like take pride in our like, no, our city is the worst. No, we have the most homicide. No, we have the most stabbings. Like there's a pride to that. There is. It was like, I get it. Yeah. And they're not wrong. Like Winnipeg is probably the homicide capital of the country and has been, you know, but it's part and parcel. Like Edmonton and Winnipeg battle that number one spot out often. So yeah. Well, and then Vancouver and Toronto, it's for, you know, like immigrant gangs. Like that's their claim to fame, right? Like it's sad but true that is what it is. It's totally like each city has its own, you know, thing that it's dealing with. So And so how long were you on as like a street constable, patrol constable, before you moved into the child abuse unit? So it's kind of interesting. I was probably in the north end for about 1.5 years, and then I had another baby. So then I was pregnant again. So again, while you're pregnant, you're not on the street or in an active duty. So I went into the office as a smart policing initiatives coordinator. And it was fun. It was interesting for me because I brought a lot of my experience from Edmonton and brought it here. And we just didn't have those kind of programs up and running in Winnipeg like we did in Edmonton. So I had a different insight into what that was going to look like. So I worked pretty close with the inspector, changing some processes that we had here and what that looked like. And then when I went on mat leave for 1 year and I came back, and this is the one thing that, I mean, you probably know this, Nikki, is like, I was told that I'm going to go back to that spot as a full duty member, but in that office space. And I remember talking to HR and I was crying. I was crying on the phone because I was like, I worked my fucking ass off to get back into my uniforms again after having a 10-pound baby. Yeah. Right. And I really want to go back to general patrol downtown because that is what I wanted to do. That is why I signed up for this job. This is what makes me tick, right? And they said, no, you did such a great job in that position when you were light duties. We really want you to do that again. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And like, do not make me go back in the office. I remember crying and arguing with this HR sergeant that this is not what I want. And don't tell me what's good for my family. You know, you have a young family and you got little kids and you know, this would be really good for you. It's a Monday to Friday. And I was like, I don't want that. Like, don't make me do something like that. But I lost the battle. As we do. As we do. Yeah. But it was like, you did something really, really good. And we want you now to move that to downtown. And I was like, but I don't want to do that. Like, find somebody else to do it. But this is what happens. You do something good and they keep you there, right? Yeah. So then I did that position for another 1.5 years and then had decided to have a third baby. So right out of that third baby, I actually ironically had back surgery right after that. So I had problems with the pregnancy and then had to have a back surgery as a result. So, but once I came back from that, I went back to downtown uniforms. So unfortunately, my street time here is not as like I had 8 years in Edmonton. I don't have that here just from babies and because of light duty stuff. So then I went downtown for about 3 years and general patrol. And then I was chosen to go to child abuse unit as a detective constable there. Yeah. So was it like your return back? And I totally get you on coming back from kids and like the injuries and things like that and wanting certain things and it not coming to fruition. Yeah. But was the move into the child abuse unit, was that something like that you were basically told, hey, you're really good at this, we're going to put you there? Or was it kind of something that you had been now? Because I think, again, and I've done episodes on this about like being a mom as a first responder and how your needs change when you have kids. Like, and if you're a new listener, if you haven't listened to our episode, go back and listen to the episode. It's fucking A, it's funny, and B, it's, it's true. But like, again, put this into consideration. If you are a 22, 23-year-old, come listen to Grandma Jody and Grandma Nikki tell you. We are now the old people that have kids and can tell you what it's like. But it does change. It changes your priorities, the needs, regardless of the amount of support or not support you might have from your spouse or your family around you. Yeah. You are always going to be number one for your kids. You are always going to be the one that the school calls. You are always going to be the one that they want to come on the field trips. You are always going to be the one that they want to put them to bed. You're always going to be the one that they want. Why are you always working? I literally just had a conversation yesterday with a friend, and she was like, all they say is her daughter was filling out this thing from kindergarten. What does your mommy like to do? Work. And she's like, and I got that, and my heart broke. And I was like, it's okay. She's 6. That's all she sees. And she's like, yeah, but that's not all she should see. Right. So I get all that. But was that the catalyst for the change to this new role? Or was it just something that you were like, you know what? I really am interested in that. Going back to, again, you said your time with the Zebra unit, like, was it just something you were kind of like, I think I'm tracking for that, and that now's the time to make the move?
Yeah, it was. I would have to say when I was with Edmonton, I didn't have kids for the first, 5-6 years. And my goal was to hopefully go into the gang unit and like maybe do some undercover work and things like that was my goal. And I had a partner that was absolutely switched on when it came to identifying those types of offenders on the street. So like that was the work that we did a lot when we had time. Once I had kids, that priority absolutely shifted because I was like, do I want to be buying drugs at 3 a.m? Like when my kid's at home? Like, I don't know. Like that just, it didn't fit anymore for me. And that's, it's a fluid position. It's a fluid job. And, we have to be open to what that looks like and changes. So being a recruit or pre-hire with the Zebra Center absolutely put me on that path because I saw the value into that type of work. And it was some of the detectives that were there that said, like, this will be the most rewarding position that you will ever have because you have victims that can't help themselves sometimes that will carry this trauma and burden for the rest of their lives. And you could be a positive impact on what that looks like for those types of victims. So that was the path that I knew after I had kids that I was like, that's kind of where I wanted to go. So once I got here and I was able to, I took some of the courses that were beneficial to be in that unit. So I took the child abuse course, I took sex crimes course, I took some investigative courses, interview and interrogation courses that would help me get there. I did some training in that unit. I got temporary acting for a couple weeks in that unit to see if I liked it, if I fit in with that group. So it absolutely, I chose to take that path and I worked hard to get there. It's not for everybody. People still say I could never do that job. It's one job that I will absolutely go back to if I have an opportunity because it's so valuable, so rewarding. The team I worked with, the people I had were fantastic. So I worked hard to get there. It's not something that people get chosen for necessarily. Like you have to apply to be in that position and then they have to choose you from there.
And so how long were you with that unit?
So as a detective constable, you're only allowed to be there for 3 years. In any of our specialty units, it's 3 years, unless you request an exemption. And then there are times where you could have a year exemption. As a detective sergeant in that unit, it's 5 years. And then as a sergeant, it's 5 years. So I was only there I did my mandatory 3 years. And then I got promoted out of there and moved into detective sergeant into major crimes. But 3 years was just enough for me. However much I love that unit and I love the work we did, it is exhausting. It's taxing. It carries with you. Yeah, but it's valuable for sure.
When you said 3 years, that was exactly what I thought. That's got to be just about the right amount of time because more than that, and I find this and I've said this again multiple times through the episodes, we have our ebbs and flows in our careers, and it's usually around that 2 2 to 3 year mark. We run hard for 2 years. We're like, this is awesome. I love this. This is so good. I'm like, wow. And then we start to hit that like, holy fuck. Okay. Like I either, you know, if you're working patrol or you work in the same division, like I'm fucking sick of seeing the same shit every day, same fucking cons, same fucking people I'm arrested, you know, like, and we start to hit that, like, I need to change. And then you get into a new one and you're like, run hard for 2-3 years. Yes. And so 3 years to me, I think is ideal. And my next thought was too, along the lines of that's 3 years of horrific trauma, dealing with the literally most vulnerable people in our world, and doing it as a mom, doing it as a female, where we have a heightened sense of empathy, and people can say all they want. Oh, it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female. Yes, it fucking does. Yes, it fucking does. Because we do have more empathy. We have more compassion. And it's never a shit on my male officers. You guys have empathy and you have compassion. But as women, we inherently, genetically, it is in our fucking DNA to be those caring and compassionate individuals who have an extra degree of it. It is just fucking biological. It is what it is. So,
I mean, I had a great partner, but in my 3rd year, that's kind of when my own personal life exploded a bit. Like I split up with my husband. I bought a new house, like finances needed to be like all those things are happening. And then I threw in my name for promotion, which is a whole other ball game.
Yeah.
And a lot of like work and stress on top of that, never mind having to deal with some of these very sensitive types of files. And we carry a fairly decent caseload in those units. And with those caseloads, it's not like you can't write it off. There's no write-offs in those units. You investigate to that bitter end as best as you can. And in my last year, I could tell that I was taxed. I was exhausted. My fitness regime had fallen to the sideline. My eating habits weren't great. Like I knew that I needed to make a change. And so when my 3rd year was up, like I knew I was excited. I was very excited to go back to uniform, which some people never say that, but it was like, you know, like there's going to be a time where my body is going to say, sorry, you're too old to go back to uniform, but I was ready for it. I was excited to be like, not have to carry stuff at home and not have to bring it home and just be like, hey, I'm at work. I'm here for these 10 hours. I don't have to bring it home with me. But I found in some of these specialty units, you do bring some of that stuff home because it's carries on you. Like you don't when you're sick, you still go to work because you're like, oh, I have 3 interviews this day and I had to arrange for all these units to come in together to make this interview happen. So I can't be sick today because this is like to rearrange this would take 2 months, right? Yeah. So I need to be there. So there was that pressure too. So
yeah. Not to dive into like the types of cases you were dealing with, but when did this unit, like when were they utilized? Like was it like, hey, patrol gets a call, they respond, say to like a domestic violence, and oh wow, when we get here, we realize that there is a lot of child abuse going on, or this has now come out as part of the investigation. Were you called then at that point and you would go out to the houses, or was your unit more of like during the course of the investigation, patrol's gone, they've dealt with the immediate, this has cropped up, and now we're going to start that investigation?
So usually the second part of what you said is like a call for service might come out and a general patrol uniform member will go and deal with that and just take the initial report and forward it to our unit. And our unit our sergeants will determine if that is something for a criminal investigation, or maybe it's just like a child and family services issue, right? Like lack of food, or the kid's not going to school. That's not necessarily a criminal activity, and that's something more child and family services need to be aware of. So they would pass that information on to them. But for us, and I think it's different with EPS, don't quote me, but we also investigate child deaths, anybody under the age of 14. So it could be a suspicious death. It could be like a suicide. We would take those on and we would investigate that stuff too. So if there was a death of some kind, often we would go to the scene, not always, but sometimes we would. We would get called out at night to go and investigate those things too. And we typically always go to the autopsies.
Wow.
For all of those. Yeah.
Whew,
so we investigate historical sexual assaults and physical assaults, as well as current stuff that's happening, as well as any kind of death that's under the age of 14 or 14 and under.
Wow. That's a lot. And so then are you liaising a lot with like school resource officers? Like, does Winnipeg have school resource officers? Yeah,
we do. Yeah. Sometimes we do, especially when we're trying to identify certain kids or
Mhm.
even suspects that are kids or that are still in the school system. We did a lot of work with Child and Family Services,
Mhm.
and we have many agencies, Child and Family Service agencies that don't necessarily always talk to each other either. So, and then we have an all nations coordinated response team, which is like their abuse investigators. So we would always kind of coordinate with all of them. So, and now like Edmonton has a Zebra Center, which is the Child Advocacy Center. We have a new one here. It's called the Toba Center. And so we started working out of that office. And so we would coordinate with them to help with interviews and supporting families and children of physical and sexual assaults.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. That's so nice to hear that that's like starting to transpire and gaining traction.
Yeah.
And so from there, this new role that you're in, Detective Sergeant in the Major Crimes Unit, how has that been? The learning curve must have been like, whoof, like rolling into that. But how's it been in your just over a year in that role? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because now I'm not just I still investigate files, and my partner is a detective constable. So we still investigate things as a team, but at times I'm also like a supervisor, a mid-level supervisor, which is kind of interesting to kind of navigate what that looks like.
Yeah.
But it's great because one, I don't find like I don't have the same stresses that I had when I was in child abuse, and that same, not that I'm not invested in my investigations, I absolutely am, but it's not that the same emotionally connection maybe as I would be in child abuse. But I would have to say I'm grateful for my interviewing and interrogation skills that I learned in that unit to bring them over to major crimes. So that's been super, super helpful. And trying to like mentor some other people that maybe don't have the same skill set, right? And granted, I have learned so much from my partners and people that are junior to me or more experienced than me, even senior to me, that are more experienced in this unit, because it's different. It's a different investigation. We use different techniques and different skills. Like there's surveillance unit and there's things that we're doing that I don't have strong skill set in. And so I know that I have to work on those and move forward. But at times I have to balance between being a supervisor as well as an investigator. So it's a great unit to be in. And my supervisors are awesome. My team is fantastic. Like I have zero complaints about being there. And I'm grateful that I was asked to go to that unit for sure.
So what types of things would Major Crimes in Winnipeg be investigating?
So we do assault with weapons, shootings, on occasion homicides, suspicious deaths. If the homicide unit is too busy, which in Winnipeg happens a lot, it sometimes gets passed on to us. So we're kind of like the stepchild to homicide unit, and sometimes we help them do certain things. We also do like commercial robberies, commercial break and enters. We have a property crime unit too, so anything kind of mischief and thefts and things like that go to that unit, or break and enters to residential goes to there. But we will do all that other stuff. So it could be anything: robberies, personal robberies, commercial robberies, weapon offenses, those kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So you're like running. I was gonna say that's a massive range to like be running. And how are you finding, because you kind of touched on it a little bit, and I know from me, my journey into a supervisor's role, same thing, like that mid-level was a little tumultuous, but how are you finding that, navigating that?
Well, it's challenging because like some people I absolutely knew before as a constable and worked with them as a constable and are friends with them, and I still want to maintain that, but sometimes it's difficult when you're now their boss, right? And they will treat you differently too, even though you don't request that or don't want that. But it's so I'm learning that we can't necessarily talk the way I would talk to a constable. And if I do, I have to like remind myself that is not what a supervisor should say. It's a learning curve, 100%. And I think I've been grateful to people that have been in my unit that have been very giving and very open to having me, knowing that I've never been in that role before. So it's a challenge for sure. I still like the investigative role, though. I don't want to get away from that. So sometimes it takes away from doing my investigations, and, switch gears into being a supervisor is it's hard.
It is. I found the same thing. And it was, for me, it was, again, I was super young. I was only 27 when I got promoted. So I was like the youngest one. I was one of the only females. I got promoted over guys that had 10 years seniority on me. People fucking hated my guts. They're like, this fucking bitch, show the fuck, right? Yeah. And I didn't have any experience whatsoever. Like I put my name in on a whim and fucking got it. Was like, what the fuck? Holy shit. Right. Yeah. So then navigating that too of like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I have to figure out how to do this job. And I also have to look confident doing it. And I need to not fuck it up, because if I fuck it up, it's not only me that's going to be in trouble. It's going to be my staff. And I don't want my staff to get in shit because I fucked up. Right. Yeah. So I totally. And then same thing, that change in people, whether they even realize that they're treating you differently or speaking to you differently, it does. It changes that dynamic and like immediately. Mm-hmm. And you start to find out who your true like peeps are. Like there was a lot of people that as soon as I got that supervisor's role, who I thought were my friends, like they were gone. Right. And it's like, oh, or I stopped getting invited for, after shift beers and I was just like, the fuck? What the fuck is going on? It's still me, motherfuckers.
Right. It's different, right? You're not really part of that group anymore. Yeah. You're just like one step removed. So
and it is tough because those are people that they're your group, they're your people, they're the people you want to go for a beer with after shift and have chats with or meet up with on days off and go hang out. And it's like all of a sudden that's a little different. So it can be alienating. It definitely can be moving into that supervisor's role. So but it sounds like you're killing it, which is good.
Well, we have a really tight group and I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong or don't know how to do something. Like I have no problems having my 8-year partner tell me how to do certain things or how to write a report in the way that we need to, right? Or how to request certain things. Like I have people that still help me doing very basic stuff because I've never done it before. So I'm not opposed to saying like, I don't know what I'm doing. Can someone help me? So we have a really tight group. So yes, even though I can be a supervisor at times, I'm still an investigator. So I'm getting there.
That's good though. And I mean, that's part of it being in these careers too, though, is like that continuous learning curve of like
absolutely
knowing what you don't know and trying to figure out how to do it. And then what you're good at, excelling that, and then sharing that with the people around you. Yes. And that's how we all get better. Right. So yeah. Okay, well, we talked about a lot of really cool things. This has been an awesome podcast. Again, like I was saying to you before we started recording, like I get to talk to my friends and catch up with them, which I love. But then I also learn all these fucking cool things that my friends do, and I'm just like, wow, that's fucking rad. I had no idea. So, it's awesome. But I wanna wrap up with some rapid fire questions because these are usually my favorite. No, they're funny. They're funny and they're easy. I promise. They're funny and easy. Number one, I ask every one of my guests, what is your favorite food or snack while on shift? So you can go back to like patrol days, you can go back to child abuse day, you can go whatever you want. Food and
100% candy, 100%, without a doubt. Unfortunately for me, but unfortunately for me, we have like canteens in every division or every unit you work in, and some have better ones than others. So like you could scour the floor, like the third floor where our units are, just to get to the right canteen that has the best candy. But so like sour keys and Coke bottles, and people know that if I'm having a rough day, they'll drop a couple sour soothers on my desk and be like, hey, this is for you. They just know that's what I like. So
that's excellent. And again, super easy, quick. You can get it anywhere. You can go to any 7-Eleven, boom, you got a little bag of fucking 99-cent candies.
But still, it's not good for me. It's like, like I could walk to the printer and walk past the canteen and I'll scoop a couple on the way. And sometimes I just throw like my $5 into the bin and just like count it down as I go. It's terrible. Yes. It's good, but it's terrible at the same time.
But it's all good. I mean, it's called balance, guys. Yeah, it's balance. That's awesome. Okay. Number 2 would be, and I don't want to, this one's you've already answered, like what's challenging in your new role. What are you absolutely loving in this new role? What just lights you up every day and gets you out of bed and goes like, I can't wait to go to work today?
Oh, that's a good one. Without a doubt, it doesn't really matter where I've worked. It's always been about the people I've worked with. I have never had a shitty boss. Not every boss is perfect, and I am in that group as well. But I think the people that I have worked with and that I have learned from and that I have been partners with have absolutely been the number one thing that has driven me to continue to be better, to learn more, to show up at work. Like that has been, I think, it doesn't matter where I've worked. I've had great partners and great supervisors. So I would say that's the number one thing that's kind of driven me to continue. Like I had a partner that constantly brought me breakfast and lunch every day. She was awesome.
Like, yes.
I miss her every day. And so I tell her, are you coming down to Major Crimes everywhere? I need a breakfast today. And she so like, it's people like that have made the difference in this job is the people that I worked with. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. We were talking about like, the love languages, the 5 love languages, that book.
Yeah.
And so we were saying, apparently there's now one for work people, like the 5 work love languages. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But I swear, I don't know, I haven't read the book, but like, I swear one of them is feeding people. One of them is somebody's love language is feeding people, because I had a guy on shift, Quack, and same thing. He and Cheryl, actually, their love language is feeding people. So they would every day, they would have something. They would be coming in with, Cheryl bakes like crazy, or she makes like appies, and Quack is Asian and he does like the most amazing Asian dishes like all the time. And so then they would just come in with like this steaming plate of like deliciousness. And you're just like, I love you. I love you as my partner, but also I need to stop fucking eating all the time. So you need to take that out of here and go somewhere else with it.
For sure. 100%. I mean, to the point that she would bring me a breakfast, like an amazing breakfast sandwich. And we'd sit there on shift briefing and we'd be the only 2 eating great food. And everybody else is staring at us like, you assholes. Like, how dare you not bring us food?
You're like, no, it's because I got this great partner over here.
Yeah, I know. I said, well, when you can be partners with her, then you can reap the benefits of the food.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And then final question I have for you. I'm going to take you back to any of your patrol days. What is one of the funniest things that you remember happening while you were on shift?
Oh, God. Oh, man.
It's hard because there's so many, right? Like, it's so hard.
There's so many good ones and so many, like, probably things I shouldn't talk about, but so many funny good ones.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind, and there's many, but this is one of them, is like between the different cars, we started throwing coffee at each other. Sounds terrible. Or like you'd leave a coffee cup full of coffee on top of their car and they wouldn't know, and they'd drive away and it would spill all over their car and then they'd be mad, right? Or you'd drive past them and you'd throw a snowball at them, right? Like you could see on our GPSs where everybody was parked if they were like doing reports or something and not at a call, or they're at a call but they're in their car, and so you could see some of that. Yeah, like we would. Yeah, I remember. I used to be, it's so silly. I had a nickname at work, and it was because I really liked leopard print stuff. So like my watch band or the back of my phone case, it was just subtle stuff. Yeah. And then someone found this gross, disgusting leopard print scarf in a back alley somewhere. And I came out of a call and they had tied it to the bumper of my car. And my patrol, it's winter because it's Winnipeg. It's minus 50 degrees here. And it got frozen. Like it was wet, frozen, stuck to my car. And I remember having to be like, and they like were around the corner peeking, waiting to see my reaction, what that looked like. And I had to take a knife and cut it off because I couldn't undo the knot. It was ridiculous. But it's just some of those fun little jokes we would play on each other because that just brightened our day and made us laugh. When some of the stuff that we deal with and see every day and have to deal with, like, sometimes those little jokes and innuendos in between shifts and cars, and that was fun. Yeah, just when we play little practical jokes on each other, that was harmless but fun, and that stuff. Yeah,
it's funny. Like that's exactly right. It's like those little things that just you like, and the best part is that they're waiting to see your reaction, and you can just hear them giggling, and you're like, "You motherfucker!"
Yeah, I know. I was like, "You asshole." But then we had to, it's funny because we had to go, there was another car that was calling for backup at a traffic stop. So we like hopped in our car and drove away. So this scarf is on the front of my car and it's like billowing in the wind as I'm driving. And we get there and we're helping this guy out at this traffic stop. And he was like, what the hell is on your car? And I was like, I know, it's embarrassing. I'm sorry. Like it's totally inappropriate. And then I couldn't get it off because it was frozen there. So I had to cut it off with a knife. It was brutal, but it's fun. It was all good fun. So
Awesome. That's a great story. That is a great story because I had another guest. I can't remember who it was, but they were telling me the same thing. Like they stole her car and moved it because they'd gone back to the station and then put all these cones like around it. And she was like, you fuckers, like I have to go. I have to move all these fucking cones. Like, so it's like stupid things like that. Yeah. But yeah, that's what you remember. That is what you remember.
It keeps us going, right? It builds camaraderie. It's some team. It's fun. And I always think that if they didn't bug me, they didn't like me, right? So it was all in good fun for sure. But yeah, we would play practical jokes on each other all the time. And
it is. It's what makes the team. It's what makes the team for sure. That's so funny. I can just picture you driving with this fucking scarf.
I know. It was like billowing in the wind as I was driving because it was on like the round bars of our car. Oh man, it was a good time.
Meanwhile, the citizens of Winnipeg are like, what in the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, granted, it was like 3 a.m, so there wasn't. Well, there's people out, but not. Yeah, it was.
It's not the middle of the day.
Yeah, it was fun. It was all good. But I remember the traffic when we went and helped this traffic guy. He looked at me like, "What the fuck is wrong with you guys?" Like, I know I'm so slightly unprofessional, but well.
But I'm here. I'm here in case you need me instead of dealing with this scarf. So fucking
cutting
still
the
there.
scarf off the front of my car. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's good. This has been so fun. This has been awesome. You've shared such great information. You've again, good stories, funny. I want to wrap up. Do you have any last words you want to give to our listeners? Any pieces of advice? Anything you want to share?
Oh man. I think out of all of the things that we see and we do, and sometimes we don't ever want to talk about those things, but it is important to talk about it with someone that you feel safe with or someone that you're comfortable with. And I'm a huge component of therapy. I'm a huge component of spreading that news because everybody out there that's never been in our position has no idea what we do and what we see every day. So to take care of our own mental health, to take care of our own family, we need to start being more open about what that looks like and talking to the people that can support us in those things. So it's moving forward. Our career, everybody's like, it's such the best thing. And it is a great career. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I would never change the choice that I made to be in this career. But as this career has evolved, things have changed over stigmatization, PTSD, mental health, all those things. So my thoughts are it's a great career to get in, but make sure that you're looking after yourself when you're in it so that you can not only look after yourself, but look after your family, which is the number one important thing. And then again, looking after your coworkers and keeping an eye out for that. So, yeah.
Yes, I love that. And we, again, on the pod, we're hearing it resoundingly from almost every single person. And I know that not every person has listened to other episodes, but without hearing it from other first responders, that is the number one thing. Therapy, get a therapist. Before you even get in the career, get a therapist. Pre-therapy, get it.
Therapy.
Fucking be ready for this because it's totally true. And if you still have the mindset, because I know people do, I'm tough enough. I won't need that. I'll be fine. Let me fucking tell you. Yes, you fucking will. Yes, you fucking will. You could be the strongest mental person you could fucking have all the strategies. You could have all the fucking yoga, all the meditation, all the fucking shit. You still need to be able to talk to somebody. You need to be able to get that shit out of your body so that you are not holding on to it. You are not letting it change you. You are not letting it warp who you are for the people that you are doing this job for. Your community, your coworkers, your family. You fucking, absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
And move your body. Like whether it's going outside for a walk, hiking, getting into nature, doing yoga, whatever floats your boat. If we do not move our bodies in whichever way that means, lifting weights, running, biking, whatever, Peloton, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But to help kind of clear your brain, I find that I'm a way better investigator. I'm a better person. I'm a better mother. I'm a better partner. All the things if I move my body in a day.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah. Mic drop on that. Love that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know.
Well, this has been a treat. Like I said, you've been amazing. I love chatting with you. And again, thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you. You served Edmonton, you're serving Winnipeg right now, and you're serving your family and your partners and your coworkers. And so thanks for all the work that you do.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I know it's been a long time coming. You asked me a long time ago. And I said no, but so thank you for reaching out again to making this happen. So I appreciate it.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six.